Geography is a very heavy course when it comes to the amount of things you're going to have to learn. For standard level students, you're going to have 5 units to learn, and for high level students, you're going to have 9 units to learn. So being organized is absolutely essential for 3 main reasons. Number 1, yourself. You won't get lost in all the work that you will have to do. Number 2, for your lessons and your assignments. If you're organized, you won't lose the work that you have to hand in. Finally, for your exams. If you're organized, studying is going to be so much easier. So I'm going to tell you how I was getting organized, but you can choose to do what you want, and how you get organized is completely up to you. So I organized myself with a folder that had 12 different sections. My first section was admin, and that is basically just anything that is about the course in general or that doesn't exactly apply to one unit in particular. The next 9 sections were all the units that I studied. If you're a high level student, you will have 9 units like I did, but if you're a standard level, you'll only have 5. The final 2 sections were for exams and IA. In the exam section, I put all of my personal exams that I actually took, not any past papers that I may have revised with. In the IA, I put anything that I guess we could consider as like logistics, so anything that would be preparation for the IA, the IA structure, so any sort of sheets like that my teacher gave us to help us start with the IA. You can choose to have this as an actual physical folder, but you can also do that on your laptop. I personally had both because we would do work on the laptop and we would also do work on paper, so it was practical to have both for me. Within each unit, I then chose to organize my work into 12 sections. I actually got this idea from my teacher when he was helping us to revise for a unit. He gave us some A3 sheets with a revision clock on it, and it basically split every unit into 12 sections. Since I really like this idea, I chose to do the same for my notes that I would make, and so I chose to split them into 12 sections. The only difference being that I didn't do it as a clock, I chose to do it on an A3 piece of paper that I divided into 12 squares. I also organized my lesson work into 12 sections just to make it easier for me to make notes afterwards. And I did that by just numbering the work from 1 to 12. I did that either physically, if it was on paper, I would just do it in one of the corners, or I did it on the file name if it was on my laptop. I chose to keep my revision notes separate from all the lesson work that I had in the folder I initially talked about, simply because I prefer to have it in a different place. I also chose to keep the past papers that I would use for practice separate from the exam section in my folder, simply because that has more to do with revision for me rather than actual exams that I took. I definitely did look at the previous exams that I had done for feedback and all the corrections, but I did prefer to have anything that was to do with revision separate from my lesson work. I definitely did look at those previous exams for feedback and corrections, but I didn't actually revise actively with those, so I didn't want to keep those in the same place. Same again with the IA, I chose to keep the actual IA work separate from the IA section of my folder. All the data that I collected and all the work that I did for my IA that I would then use to actually write this IA, I chose to keep in a different folder. It was also much more practical because I took that folder with me when I went to collect IA data. So that is how I personally got organized. I think it worked fantastic. I would definitely recommend getting organized like this, but if you want to get yourself organized in a different way, that is perfectly fine as long as you're organized and you know how your organization works.